Today's really special. I was going to wear red in honor of Taylor's boyfriend today because I heard there's a sport ball happening. But then I found out that both teams are red, and I thought, I just hope everybody has fun and plays a good game. In addition to it being Sport Ball Day, and possibly more importantly, a couple of other things are happening right now. We are right in the midst of Black History Month, and it is so important for all of us to acknowledge and to celebrate the vast contributions of Black Americans to our country and our history. And I will add, uplift and empower and make sure that equality is truly for everyone. Part of Black History Month isn't just looking at the amazing contributions of the past, it's looking at what inequities are we experiencing today that can be ameliorated for all Americans. So, that's my piece. The Lunar New Year also started yesterday in the Chinese zodiac. This is the year of the dragon, which is very auspicious. Are you I heard there's a dragon in the house, so watch out for Brit, y'all. No, the year of the dragon is very auspicious. It represents good luck, magic, strength, and health. And I say more of that, please. More of that for all of us. So what a good year we have coming. And Valentine's Day is this week. So we are going to talk about that little four-letter word, L-O-V-E, today. And we're going to kind of approach it from three different lenses. First, we're going to talk about our ability to choose love no matter what. I know, it's hard, it's tricky. When we choose love, the effect that has and the healing power of love on generations down the line. And this concept that love is the power of spirit. This love is the universal life force. This love is God. So that's what we're about today. The name Valentine, or Valentinus as it was originally called, comes from the Latin word meaning strength or strong and healthy, basically. But it had an implication of worthy, that you're worthy. And so Valentine Day is a day for all of us to remember that we are inherently worthy. One of the things that I personally had to excavate when I began to explore new thought was deservingness. In the religion of my youth and the culture of my youth, there was very much deserving people and non-deserving people. And so this idea that we are all worthy took some excavation in my mind, and it took some getting used to. But I'm here 24 years later to tell you, yes, we are all worthy of love. And I think that's really important to keep in mind this time of year. Each of us is worthy of receiving great love in all its forms. All of us. Yes, even them. Whoever your them is. Equally worthy of love. It's easier said than done. I know. I don't know if you caught Reverend Shannon's beautiful, beautiful talk from last week, but she spoke incredibly powerfully about how the stardust that lives in me is the same stardust that lives in you and every single one of us on this planet, all of us. That we all share the same universe, both internally and externally, and how when we live in this remembrance, it not only will get us through what may be a very interesting year, but it will also provide a bridge of understanding that can create greater peace in all of our lives. We are all made of the same stuff. Gwendolyn Brooks was an author, poet, teacher, and the very first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize. And she wrote, "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's harvest. We could meditate just on that line for quite a while, couldn't we? You are my harvest. I am your harvest. We are each other's harvest. And think about it. Even the people that we might not disagree with provide a harvest for us. A harvest is an opportunity to grow, for us to grow. I just got back from a quick trip down to Texas to visit my family of origin, my dear, dear, sweet family. And every single one of them, every single person that I interacted with, see the world very differently from me. They celebrate religion differently from me. They view politics very differently from me. I don't think we have ever voted for the same person. They have a different idea of the role that government should play in American lives, and they have a different idea of what form of government we should be having right now. We could not be more different. We could not. And yet, when I was able to just set all of those constructs, because that's what those are. Every single one of those things I mentioned, those are just constructs that we fit our relationships in. They're different places that we relate to each other, but it's not the truth of any of us. Who I vote for is not the truth of me. Who they vote for is not the truth of them. Spoiler alert, love is, right? So when I was able to put all of those false constructs aside and just be with them, just set all of that aside and listen to their hearts, listen to their desires for their lives, for the world, listen to their fears. When I was able to get genuinely curious and willing to learn, not only from them, but about them. Oh my God, what a harvest of love. What a harvest of love and understanding. You know, understanding breeds empathy. And this love kind of went forward before me to clear up a safe place for me. It allowed me to be heard and understood as well. But I had to choose love first. I was on the phone with one of our beautiful practitioners the day before I left for my trip, and I was talking a little bit about what my concerns were in getting some of that beautiful practitioner prayer support. And she said the most brilliant thing to me. She said, "Shell, just let God enter the room before you. Let God go first." And because the God that I know is love, the God I know is love, it was love that entered the room before me and set a place at the table, a place where I was safe, a place where I could get curious and learn. Love did that because I allowed love to present itself first. And so I'm curious, is there a place in your life? Is there a relationship, a family member, a coworker, a friend that you have learned from? Because that is the activity of love too. And so the question becomes, where in your life could you take that next step towards choosing love first, choosing that harvest? Who could you extend a little bit of extra care to this week? My advice, if you choose to take it, is to just let love enter the room first. Let love enter the room of your heart. Let love enter the physical space. And then you're free because you're safe. And you're free to be curious and to learn and to reap that harvest. When we do this, it makes love the easy choice. The easy choice. In A Course in Miracles, it says, love always leads to love. Love always leads to love. So I want to share a story with you that I learned from Reverend Shannon. And some of you may know this story and might have heard this story from her. But I want you to hear this with the context specifically of Black History Month on the one hand, and from the context of this idea that love leads to love. Okay? So, it was just after the Second World War. Wow. It was, let's just start over, shall we? Let's do that. So, it was just after the Second World War in Ohio. And so, of course, this was the mid to late 1940s. And a young African-American woman named Dorothy and her fiancé, Kenneth, went into an Episcopal church one Sunday morning. They were the only people of color there. The woman, Dorothy, had been a Baptist, but after reading C.S. Lewis's excellent book, it's called Mere Christianity, it had really touched Dorothy's heart, and she found his logic and his explanation of Christianity really compelling and personal for her, and so she wanted to explore that faith tradition. And so after some time, she found herself at home in the Episcopalian faith, and she converted from being a Baptist to being an Episcopalian. Her fiancé, Kenneth, on the other hand, not only was he a Baptist, but he was in seminary with plans to become a Baptist minister, and he had never stepped foot in an Episcopalian church before, had no context. So, as the story goes, one Sunday, Kenneth finally agreed to just go along with Dorothy to her church service. So, keep in mind, this is the 1940s in the segregated state of Ohio, and they were the only two people of color in the room. Just walking in the door must have been an act of courage. When it came time for the Eucharist, Dorothy, who was confirmed, walked up towards the altar to receive communion. So let's talk about communion for a second. In the Baptist church, communion, you stay in your pews, and communion is passed to you with these cute little cups of grape juice if you're Southern Baptist, wine if you're a heretic. And there are these cute little cups, and the ushers, men, pass them to you, and you take your little cup, and you sip your little wine in remembrance of the love that was the life of Jesus, right? And then they pass the little plate of god-awful wafers, and then your mouth is dry until you can get home and get some water. That's how communion works in the Baptist church. In the Episcopalian church, and also in my experience of the Catholic Church as well, when it's time to take communion, you actually go up to the front. And the priest or the minister or the reverend or the bishop, they actually bless the wine and they bless the bread. And in the Episcopalian church, people come up in a line and the minister hands them the cup that has been blessed. And the person drinks from the cup and hands it back. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of love. Right? Really beautiful. But everyone drinks from the same cup. So Kenneth, bless his heart. Remember, he had only vaguely heard of Episcopalians. He stayed in his seat to watch this whole ritual happen. And when he realized that everyone was sipping from the same cup, he became understandably concerned. To give you some context, Jim Crow and the pain of segregation was still in full swing. The armed forces had not yet been desegregated. Brown versus the Board of Education had not yet been issued. The drinking fountains were still separate. Rosa had not yet refused to give up her seat on the bus, and Martin Luther King was a student in seminary. And they were drinking from the same cup. Kenneth sat and watched his fiancée with great worry, and he heartbreakingly wondered if the priest would actually give her the cup, the same cup to sip from. Can you imagine? And as he watched how it was done, he wondered if the white people in line behind Dorothy would drink from the same cup after her. Heartbreaking. And so he watched, and it became her turn. And the priest turned to Dorothy, and he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." And he gave her the cup or the chalice of wine, and she drank from it. And then Kenneth watched in awe as the next person right after her took a sip from the same cup, and on down the line it went. No one even batted an eye. Kenneth later said it was the most normal thing in the world, which of course we know it wasn't at that time, sadly. He said that the reconciling experience of this moment when everyone drank from the same cup brought him into the Episcopalian Church, where he became an ordained minister, and he served for the rest of his life in the Episcopalian Church. I want to be clear here that one of the greatest contributors to the justification of the enslavement of Black people was the horrific misuse of the Christian Bible. And so this act was a intergenerational healing because, and here's where consciously choosing love becomes this infinite possibility of the healing going forward. Dorothy and Reverend Kenneth married, and they eventually had 2 children. And one of them, the person who told this story, is Bishop Michael Curry, who grew up to become the 27th presiding bishop of the entire Episcopalian Church. He is the first African American elected to this role, and he is the public leader of the more than 2 million Episcopalians across the world. You may recognize him as the bishop who gave the sermon for the royal wedding of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. I watched that wedding, and he touched me so deeply. He spoke about love in a way that moved me to my core, and I would like to share an excerpt of what he said with you now. I invite you to take a breath. Dorothy and Reverend Kenneth Curry's son, the Bishop Michael Curry, he said this: "Think and imagine a world where love is the way. Imagine our homes and families where love is the way. Imagine it. Imagine neighborhoods and communities where love is the way. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce where love is the way. When love is the way, then no child will go to bed hungry in this world ever again. When love is the way, poverty will become history. When love is the way, the earth will be a sanctuary. When love is the way, we will study war no more. This is a new heaven, a new earth, a new world, a new family," he said. I invite you to consider how you might participate in the generational healing of choosing love. Perhaps you might have some forgiveness work to do. I would be lying if I said I hadn't done a good bit of forgiveness work around those glorious humans in Texas. I had some forgiveness work to do. I did it for me. But the effect on it, on my parents, and I believe my grandparents and their parents before them, is real. Mark Nepo said in 7,000 Ways to Listen, he said, in order to love someone, you must allow all of them into your heart. We don't get to pick and choose We don't get to decide which parts to love and which parts to throw away. How rude. In order to love them, we must love all of them. And for me, that took some forgiveness work. And I just want to remind you that forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same things. They are two separate things. And you may have some some forgiveness work to do where it's not safe for any reason to do the reconciliation work, and that's okay too. Forgiveness is for you. Reconciliation is for the relationship, for the community, for the culture. But it starts with forgiveness. Reconciliation may or may not happen. I'm happy to say that reconciliation happened for me, but it started with me choosing love and being willing to look at the hurt places and to be loved there too. The thing that makes this easier to do, frankly, I'll give you like the what's it when you're playing chutes and ladders and you can like ladder on up to the next level. The thing that makes that just a lot easier is anchoring to exactly what Reverend Shannon said last week, anchoring to that shared stardust of ours. It's a game changer for our hearts. It's a game changer. You don't have to make excuses for them. You don't have to tell stories about why they did it. You can just let the past be the past and choose love today, because if you don't, who will? In Hinduism, the mother of all religions that came thousands and thousands of years before Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, the mother of all religions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the soul that exists in everything. I am the soul that exists in everything. Not just the people that are easy to love. No, no, no. Everything. Everyone. So what part of your own particular world or family or workplace or block, what could use a little bit of extra love this week? Perhaps on Valentine's Day, this Wednesday, you might think of who in your world could be reminded of their worth. Remember, Valentine's Day is about the worthiness of us all. As the poet Mary Oliver wrote, my job is to love the world. Let's do more of that. You heard me say earlier that the God I know is love. You've heard me say that a lot. This idea that love is God, or that love is spirit, or love is energy source, it can sometimes feel a little bit difficult to relate to. God is all of these grand, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. I almost forgot the third omni. How embarrassing. How does that omniscience match up with my human desire and expression of love? How do those things interact, right? This love that we express for each other, this love that shows up as joy, forgiveness, shared grief, miracles, grace, that this love originates in the holy cells of each and every one of us. That thing that looked at the world and said it needs a you. Let's bring that to life. This is the origin of our love. I love this piece from the great spiritual scholar and author Matthew Fox. Oh, I adore Matthew Fox. He helps me to remember the sacred truth. And he writes this: if God is love, then God is encountered in all that we love and cherish. From friends and lovers and children and panda bears and whales and dogs. If God is love, then the music I love, the poems I love, the sunshine I love are all theophanies, A theophany is, you know how an epiphany is like a visceral experience, a body experience of God? A theophany is a visible manifestation of God. So all of these things that I love, the music I love, the poems I love, the sunshine I love, they are theophanies. They're visible manifestations of love and epiphanies of the Godhead. To say that God is love rules out images of God as a great judge in the sky, a peeping Tom in the bedroom, an avenger God out to destroy others, or the God of powerful lording over the less powerful. These are not the images of a God of love, and therefore they are not God, but an idol. Love isn't something set apart. It isn't something to achieve or strive for. It is something inherent that is to be celebrated and magnified, explored, befriended. It isn't rare. It's the most common thing there is because it is who we are. And it is who they are. Our job is to remember it, to be it, and eventually we come to find that there is no us and them because we are all the same stardust. Love is love is love is love, my friends. And all of it is sacred, and all of it is worthy, and all of it is God. So this week, I invite you to remember that like stardust, we are each other's harvest. And when we choose to reach out and extend a loving heart, we're also choosing to acknowledge that person's worth. And it's easy when we let love enter the room before us. Like Bishop Curry's parents taught us, when we choose love, we're choosing generational healing, intergenerational healing, going forward and back. Everything has a ripple effect. Everyone is talking about the big game today. Well, not everyone, Michael. Some people are talking about the big game today. Well, choosing love is the long game, y'all. Hold to the knowing. Hold to the knowing that love is our religion and that every single time we choose love, we're choosing God. We're choosing spirit. We're choosing wholeness. We're choosing grace. So this week I invite you to choose and use that little 4-letter word. And please know how much you are loved.